So we've got Jared Daws on this episode. How are we doing, Jared? You okay, mate?
Doing good. How are you?
Superb, mate. Bit tired, but it's only Tuesday now. But getting back into the swing of it after a heavy weekend, shall we
Yeah.
say? Entertaining some
Is
boys from
Labor Day a
Kentucky.
thing over there? Or is that an American thing?
That's an American thing, yeah. So I
Okay. All
I
right.
know it's is it a big thing over where you guys are?
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah. Like everybody, like I was out camping, and so my brother and sister-in-law bought some land out on the river, and so the only way to get to it's by a boat, and you're up on a cliff, and so that's where we were for the weekend. And there was just people in their boats all weekend long.
Oh, that
They were
sounds
doing like a
sweet.
concert on the beach and stuff.
That reminds me of like some old Alan Jackson videos where they're out
Oh
on
yeah.
the Florida lakes and stuff like that. That looks really cool. So what is Labor Day? You know, just for us UK folk.
It's a day off. It's a reason to get drunk for most people.
That sounds good. Well, maybe we should adopt that. I think we've adopted some other things like Thanksgiving, just so it's an excuse that we can get drunk, have a day off, and
Yeah.
yeah, pretend we're celebrating with you. But there you go.
Yeah.
So where are you currently based, mate?
I'm based out of Picayune, Mississippi, real south.
Oh, sweet. I think you're the
Yeah.
first guest that we've ever had on from that region. Like I was saying just before we
Yeah.
come on, a lot of the guests we have on are from the Appalachian region or
Hmm.
Texas and places like that. So it's always nice to have someone from a different region so you
Yeah.
can kind of educate us about what it's like there and what the scene is like as
Yeah.
well. So what is your hometown currently? What's it like? Is it a good place to kind of work, to raise a family?
So it's a super small town. Um, it's definitely a place to raise a family for sure. You know, there's a lot of good people here, a lot of good morals and stuff instilled in these people here. But I mean, there's not really a whole lot going on, which is really why I moved here, because I came from a city where there was a whole lot going on, and that's just not my thing. It was just I wanted to slow down a lot. You know, I was kind of living fast in different ways and getting in trouble as a kid, and so um, hanging around some bad people, and not all of them, but you know, some of them, and it was just time for a change, and you know, I ended up meeting my now wife some years back, and so I just wanted to go in a better direction.
I hear you, man. That's it's kind of what I did in the UK. As I'm getting older, I'm getting further and further out in the sticks and out in the country, and that
Yeah,
suits me just fine, mate.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, cities aren't for me anymore. It's yeah,
yeah.
it's like you say, you get mixed up in the wrong crowd, the wrong people, and
Hmm.
it goes south pretty quick. But so, is there any like music icons or famous people or infamous people that are kind of synonymous with your town where you are?
Not my town, but Mississippi for sure. I mean, there's tons of people. Tupelo, Mississippi. You know, the Elvis, bunch of people came out of Mississippi. Huge musicians have come out of Mississippi. A
Yeah.
lot of blues. You know, we have like the Delta blues and things like that. But no, not specifically my town, but right next door to it, there's a town called Poplarville, and a new country act that kind of I think they were one of the people who got like the golden buzzer on America's Got Talent. They were called Chapel Hart.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
and so they came from Poplarville, which is literally this like the city over 30 minutes away. But Picayune specifically, not that I know of. Supposedly Janis Joplin's girlfriend lived here, but
Okay.
I think that might be the most notable thing adjacent to music, maybe. But I just moved here about 5 years ago, so I'm not
Yeah,
originally from here. So you know, I'm still always learning.
yeah, gotcha, mate. So, is music a full-time occupation for you now, or are you still kind of doing the day job?
So music is full time for me. I do take jobs as I want to, because I was a barber. So I still cut hair if I want to. Sometimes, like if I'm like, hey, you know, I need extra money. We're about to go do this. Music would take care of me nowadays, thankfully.
Good.
But that's all that it would do. It would take care of what I need, but not what I want. And so
Yeah,
if there's things that I want, I go and, you know, I'll go schedule myself. But, you know, if I was to quit, I'd be able to survive.
Legend. It's nice to have that kind of financial freedom to delve into that, and it's I love
Yeah.
speaking to people about if they're doing it full time, if they're not, what is the occupation they're doing, and some in my head, massive artists are still grinding out the day job, whether it's painting cars,
Mhm.
barbering, like you say. It's just interesting to me, so that's cool, man. So let's go straight into the music. So, for people that might not have heard of you before or your music, how would you go about describing it in your own words?
I would say the type of music that I play is just country music that you're not gonna hear on the radio. I'm not playing pop country music. I'm playing songs that, talk about real messages and real life issues. And, I'm not hating on the pop country stuff. Those dudes are doing their thing, they're making their money. It's just not where my heart and sound is at. And so,
Yeah,
for me, I'm more adjacent to the singer-songwriter side of things that you kind of feel like true grit, and you hear, real stories and things that the everyday person can relate to.
love
So,
it. Yeah, like you say, I think pop country is got a huge following. Definitely out in the UK, as I mentioned, and that seems to be where a lot of the money is. And I
yeah, it is.
suppose it's easy to get drawn into that, particularly if industry folk are contacting you and are wanting to kind of promote you and or work
Mhm.
with you. Is it something you've experienced where industry people have reached out trying to mold you in a different way,
Oh,
perhaps?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, dude, there's been people who talk to me and they're like, "Man, you got such a good story, you've got a great voice, but, how do you feel about this artist?" And, I've told them like, "Hey, that's just not what I'm into." And they get mad. Sometimes they get mad. And I'm just, I can't be bought, bro. It's not worth it to me. I gotta get up and love what I do. If I didn't, I've never been the type of person who could smile in your face and be, upset behind the scenes. That's just not who I am. Like I say it how I see it and say what I feel. And me in a situation where I'm doing what I don't like, it wouldn't last long.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that about you, mate. It's very similar to people reaching out to us on a podcast. We started out because of we wanted to speak to people like you, independent
Mhm.
artists, and people doing it real, authentically.
Yeah.
And some people I've been pitched, and it's nothing against them at all, but I think I can't fake it. I can't fake interest in music I don't like, or
Mhm.
the reason why we did this in the first place. So yeah, I would just be faking it. Maybe I'll be in a bigger house, maybe.
Yeah.
My wife might be happier, but I
Right.
certainly wouldn't be happy doing that.
Yeah.
Cool, man. But so yeah, so I really want to kind of spend some time delving into your music. I spent this week going through your tracks and going through your Facebook because I'm a nosy git anyway. But it's just interesting to get to know the person, and I think that forms the basis of a lot of my questions. And
Mhm.
you're getting a lot of attention for Road Dog. That was not
Mhm.
put out not long ago, was it? And so
Mhm.
rather than me kind of waffling my way through it, do you want to talk about Road Dog, the kind of inspiration for that, and some of the reception, which has been really positive,
Mhm.
around that. So, yeah, do you want to talk about that, mate?
Yeah, so Road Dog has an interesting story because when I first wrote that song, I actually wrote it to try and sell it. And so it was inspired by an interview that I saw on accident. So I was on maybe Instagram or something on Reels, and I'm always scrolling through trying to, hear what other people are talking about, whatnot. And I saw a video of Co Wetzel, and I know a few Co Wetzel songs, but he was talking about something that, I kind of agree with in a sense. And it was, they were asking him, long story short, kind of like how he felt about TikTok and social media and things like that. And he said that he hated it because it's just, and in the sense, the internet tried to kill the touring musician. There's so much of what can be seen online. People feel okay with just doing that instead of going out to shows. And great, thankfully, not everyone. Their concerts are still huge. Don't get me wrong, but I would be willing to bet that attendance has dropped since the internet has been able to make things more more viewable, easier. But he said, he didn't like it, and he asked the question. He said, "What happened to all the road dogs? Where are all the road dogs at?" And I was just like, dude, that's something that I really, really relate to. Because like the internet's great, and the internet's been very kind to me. But at the end of the day, I was born to older parents. I'm 31, and my mom is turning 70 this year. So she didn't have me until later on in life, and I'm one of 8 siblings. So my mom spent her whole life having kids, and you know, by the time she got to me, they were just older. So my mom was born in the 50s. So back then, my dad, he was talking about when he was a musician, the only way to get discovered was to go around and play. There was no internet to feed your music to somebody. And so I've always really had the values instilled in me that I need to get up in front of people and show them what I can do. And so I related to that message a lot. And so I wrote that song. And when I got finished with it, I just realized I wrote my own story, and so I had to be the person to sing it. I didn't want to push it off. Maybe if later on in life somebody wants to cut it, that's cool. I'd be fine with that. But I think that it was important for me to send that message first. So
Yeah.
This dog on a beat handled up. I'm so close I can touch the dream that's on the run. And this life has taken me through the mud, but it's heading where I want. So I'm following the blood. I'm a road dog.
That's a cool story. I do like Ko Wetzel. I think he does a lot down in the Texas scene, and he
hmm
seems an honest dude. And he's he's doing really well.
yeah,
So
yes,
good on him, man. And the reception to that, and it's funny if you go through your Facebook, you can see, you sleeping with the award and stuff like that. So do you want to tell
yeah,
us about the after part to that?
yeah. So you know, we went to Atlanta for the International Singer-Songwriter Association Awards, and I'm trying to think. I was nominated for like 7 awards, and an award would come up, and they had bronze, silver, and gold for each one. And so you had 3 chances at each one, and an award would pass, and I didn't get it. Award would pass, and didn't get it. And then they finally got to single of the year. They called the bronze. I was like, okay, now I'm at 2 out of 3. If I could get this, call the silver, and I was just like, it's just not my year. And then my dad said that he saw the guy look at the paper, and so this organization's been around for 6 years now, and this is my first year being involved. But there's a lot of people who've been since 2019, 2020, 21. Been in it a few years, enough to for people to know who you are, just as friends. And this is my first year, so I only knew a couple people who I've known through the internet. My dad said that he just had a look on his face, like he was like, "I'm not sure that I've seen this guy here before." And my dad said in that moment he knew that I won. And then they called my name, and I was just in such disbelief. I was just like, "Wow!" First year entry to win the gold was wild. But then later on in the show, it was announced that I don't know if you know how the Grammys work, but to submit something to the Grammys is like a club, and you have to be invited. And to be invited, you have to be noted. You have to be a notable, I guess, like a force in the music industry. And the international singer-songwriter, I mean, it's brought people together all the way from as far as New Zealand to us. There was people there that have flew from all over the world. And so they announced that this year they've become a voting member of the Recording Academy for the Grammys. And because of that, anyone who won gold was able to submit for a nomination in the Grammys. And
Nice.
so Road Dog has officially been submitted to the Grammys.
That's superb, mate. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
when might you hear back about that?
I think it's November 7th is the date that I saw that they start rolling out the nomination list. So we'll see. Winning. Obviously, I mean, there's just Chris Stapleton's in the Grammys. So it's just. But just to even get nominated, just to make the cut on the list, to be put next to those names would be a huge, huge enough win for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. And do you think it's let's say you mentioned they've been involved in it for 6 years. Is that the intention of was it the ISSA, to kind of put forward more independent artists in that sense to the Grammys?
For sure. For sure. I mean, even if not just to the Grammys, they're all about independent artists. Miss Tammany Dove, the founder, she's an angel. She's done so much for artists like myself. So yeah, she's just that whole organization is really, really pro independent artist. So yeah,
That's awesome,
they've done
mate.
a lot.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and it's like you say, it's nice to see the recognition going filtering down, and you don't have to have millions of followers to get
Yeah,
to that point. So I
exactly.
love those sort of organisations, and yeah, it's really good to see. So in terms of like putting Road Dog together, and again, I'm really interested in the industry, how it works. We kind of see what's going on as a fly on the wall. We operate in a different space in the podcast world. So in terms
Hmm.
of like the cost or the effort to make a single, I've seen lots of like fees banded around in terms of what that involves. So perhaps,
Yeah.
for the likes of me or for people getting into the industry as an artist, what efforts do you have to put in? What funding, is involved as a ballpark?
So I'll say this. First things first is you could pay anywhere from $500 for a song to 100,000. It really just depends on who you're working with and what you deem worthy of your money. So with recording Road Dog, the first thing that I did was I reached out to my now friend Pat Lyons, and Pat Lyons plays for a guy named Coulter Wall. And if you haven't heard Coulter Wall, I'm envious of you to hear him for the first time. He's just an absolute an incredible musician for one too. Just the Appalachian, he's got like a mix of like the Appalachian, the country singer-songwriter folklore type sound, and just sounds like he's been eating gravel his whole life. His voice is just, it's something that you don't hear often, if not ever. And so right off the top, working with Pat's the producer, so Pat's gonna get a producer fee. So that's one of the fees to remember. Two, so from there, I wrote the song. I wrote Road Dog. I wrote the whole thing sitting down on my couch, me and the acoustic. Wrote the song, wrote the lyrics, wrote the melodies. I sent it all to Pat. And then from there, Pat kind of figures, okay, this is what this song needs. These are the musicians I know can do this. And he sends me different ones, kind of like their accolades, what they've done, who they work with. And so Maddie Meyer, and so I was like, I know I need to have Maddie over there playing. And so that's, I have to pay Maddie. That's, another musician fee. We had Gregory Garner. Gregory Garner plays for a guy named Sam Barber, and he's also on tour right now with Post Malone, and he plays bass. And so I had to pay him. We had an organ player. Trying to think who else. Pat played the electric guitar and the pedal steel. And we took all of this to Nashville. We recorded at a studio called the Owl. So you have to pay for the studio time. Then Mitch Furr, he is the tracking and mixing engineer. You have to pay him for tracking and mixing. And then we sent it off to a guy named Mike Monsieur to master the track, and so you have to pay for mastering. So coming into it, immediately, depending on if you're traveling or not, you have to pay for travel and lodge. You pay for a producer, you pay for your studio musicians, you pay for the studio, you pay for your tracking and mixing engineer and your mastering engineer. And in total, that will not be cheap.
Yeah, man. It's I don't think people appreciate the amount of effort, like you say, you guys put into not just making the record. It's the marketing, it's the like say the production, the costs. it just it mounts up. It blows my mind, man. In terms
Yeah.
of, the more I learn about the industry, and then you got to go and market it, and
Had to pay for a video, had to pay for ads, had to pay for this
yeah,
and that,
it's a minefield for sure, man. And I love learning about, say, the industry side of it. Certainly about the social media side of it, because some people love it, some people hate it. It's free to use for the most part. It's what I suppose the big wigs at these social places take off of you in the end. And you put out an interesting post not long ago about the changes, I think, in Facebook monetization. Um, I think that's an interesting topic to perhaps talk about. And, I suppose a lot of you guys are relying on the money coming through from the socials too
Oh, for
to help
sure.
pay for that. So what's your experiences of that, and what kind of impact has it had recently on you?
So with the way that Facebook's changing, they're changing right now. Facebook, the way you get paid out from Facebook is called the bonus program. And the bonus program is like an all-encompassing thing. Anything that you post, however much traction it generates, you're making money from that. So they're changing, from what I understand, to the content monetization program, which is going to be focused more on the Reels side of things. And so I know people who make money, including my own sister. I mean, my sister has over 100,000 followers on Facebook. And so she makes photo posts every day. Well, she's seen her money get drastically cut because it's not Reels. And so it seems like most platforms, like even YouTube, like YouTube Shorts, TikToks are in the form of, what Meta calls Reels. Instagram and Facebook, that's Meta, that's Reels. All these like all these social media platforms are pushing content in the form of that short form video, vertical video content. And so with changing that, that affects a lot of what I make, and that affects everything that my sister makes, being a content creator. And so I don't really know how that's all going to go. And, I'm going to change gears to try and focus more on content based in that way. But it people's attention spans nowadays are so short that it's easier for them to just see like a funny picture, like me sleeping in the bed with the award, as opposed to me making a video leading up to that point. Um, but a lot of the people who support me are, they are very supportive. So I feel confident that they will watch that kind of content. But on the surface level of things, it's just, you have to have something that's going to catch somebody's attention so quick that a video versus a photo, I mean, a photo's right there, you're not waiting to get to the point. Um, it affects all that kind of stuff. So that actually changed over just yesterday, maybe.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah,
Today's the first day of it, really.
it's interesting, mate. And I think it just changes the way you think. Like you say, the way you think, the way you put stuff out, and it just becomes, for me, less natural, because you're thinking in a way that the algorithm wants you to kind of put it out, and
For
it
sure.
might not be the way that you talk or the way that you portray yourself. And I'm getting old,
Yeah.
man. I'm 40 now, so trying to do all these reels and stuff, it's it's difficult. But we know as a podcast as well, we're in a similar boat, that we've got to try and catch people's attention, and
Right.
it's difficult when you got long form conversations. So I'm not going to do clickbait. I refuse to do that. So it might impact our kind of viewership, but we'll find a way to kind of get around that. But
Yeah.
anyway, mate, let's talk more about your music, because I was having a good listen earlier through Spotify, and there's some great stuff on there. And it's all been released, according to Spotify, in the last couple of years. So you've been busy recording, putting stuff out there. So do you want to talk a little bit about the other tracks?
Yeah. So I pretty much, I started with Runaway Train. That was the first song that I released. And that came as a big shock to a lot of people because, unbeknownst to people, unless you grew up with me, I was raised up on country music. That was really what I was really into. And then later in life, all my friends were playing like rock and roll and heavy metal. So I was really hard, like, into that scene. And I love that music and still do. I'm not saying that I don't. But growing up as a kid, kid bands don't want to play country music, They want to play like rock and roll. They want to play stuff that, that they think's cool. And so I was just like, yeah, I'm down to play music in any capacity. And so I really took off in that and did that for a long time, and still, like I said, still love it. I still listen to heavy metal. Um, and I grew up listening to R&B, and I got into making music like that. I love music in general. And so when I moved over to Picayune, I realized it was a good opportunity for me to finally start doing what I've wanted to do for a long time, and what my mom has been asking me to do forever, which was make country music. And like I said, I grew up on it. I was raised on it, and I've always had a deep rooted passion for it. And Picayune's a small country town, and so I was finally in the one spot that if I did what I've always wanted to do, it would be perceived probably the best that it could be. And so when I started putting it out, the attraction grew really quick, especially from like working in the barbershop. I had so many people in and out of the door that I was just like, hey, I don't know if you saw this, but blah 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 blah. And they go and listen, they either like it or don't, tell somebody. It was just word of mouth that really, and with my town being so small, the town that I'm in is so small, you could walk into a place and see the same person every other day. You kind of, everyone's got their routine, so where everyone's at, so you can walk in and be like, hey Bill, hey Dave. They're sitting right there because that's what they do. And so it kind of became one of those things. I'd go into a place and people were like, "Yeah, I heard your music. It's really good." Or if maybe they didn't say anything because they didn't like it, whatever it may be. And from there, the song that really got me my start was Fighter Boy. And so I recorded Fighter Boy and with my friend Jordan, and my friend Ben filmed the video for me, and my friend Edgar let me shoot the video in the top of his gym. And then my friend David let me shoot the fighting portion of the video in his MMA gym, and I put it out on YouTube, and it ended up taking off really quick. And the YouTube suggestions on that video alone got it like 39,000 views.
Wow.
So it was just, I don't know, I hit some kind of good algorithm. I don't know how or why, but it started pushing it. And so I started, started getting like thousands of subscribers. Um, so that worked out, and the song got picked up by the local radio stations from Louisiana, where I'm originally from. It's in Mississippi now. It's on other stations around the country, and it's just, that song's the one that really showed me, okay, this can work out. And then I was still solo at the time, and everyone's like, dude, like, this is working out. You need to start getting a band together and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, you know what, you're right. And so I got lucky with the fact that one of my childhood best friends, Dylan, he married this girl, Katie, and Katie's an incredible singer, an incredible piano player. And so I had a direct access to her, and she joined the band. And then the dude who was working on all my guitars, John Wolverton, his son was a drummer, or is a drummer. And so I met him, and now he's my drummer. And then through the radio station, they asked me if I needed anything else on the band, and I was like, I would really love to have like a fiddle player. And they're like, we know a guy, and so they introduced me to Parker, and Parker's in the band now. And so it kind of all just worked out that, I guess, YouTube did its thing and showed some people, and my hometown liked what I was doing, and it all just kind of worked out to put me in the position that I am now. I'm so thankful for Picayune, Mississippi, man. They changed my life.
I learned how to fight at a very early age. My brother was a fighter and my uncle all the same. Underneath the old oak tree in the middle of the yard, I shed some blood and tears, and I earned my battle scars.
That's awesome. Like you say, it just kind of all falls into place sometimes, and
Yeah,
it's meant to be. And you haven't stopped there, man. It's really cool to see that. And just again being nosy, going through Facebook and stuff like that, trying to do some kind of semi-research as I do. But it looks like you're selling your worldly possessions. So are you off to another pasture, or is it just moving house? What's going on in your personal life at the minute?
Yeah, so we're moving, but we're staying in Picayune. We're just moving to the opposite side of Picayune. Right now I'm in a neighborhood that's out in the woods, but this time I'm moving to just like a house that's out in the woods. Um, I'm gonna go stay there for some time while I work on just getting everything else ready. We're gonna build a house, and um, yeah, I'm just selling off everything because I'm downsizing and can't take it with me. And I just at this point, with everything that's kind of happening and working out, it's time for like a clean slate to just get everything that I need moving forward in place and just focus on that. Yeah.
Cool. I thought I'd ask you because I thought, is he packing up and going to Nashville or somewhere? Real?
Nah, nah, nah. I could move to Nashville tomorrow if I wanted to. My aunt lives there. I have a
Oh,
house.
cool.
I mean, I have a room in her house that's got my stuff in it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
could be in
do you
Nashville
spend
tomorrow.
any time over in Nashville or other scenes at all?
Yeah, I spend time in Nashville. I'm in Nashville probably every other month, just working on things and whatever it may be, whatever brings me to Nashville,
Cool.
recording or playing, whatever it may be. But yeah, I'm in Nashville pretty often.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So, as an independent artist, I always like to say, what is the best thing? Because we always talk about, the struggles or the challenges you come up against, whether it's social media or whatnot. But there's always going to be amazing stuff. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it.
Right.
So, for your opinion, what is the best thing about being independent?
It's that I can do what I want. There's not somebody telling me to make this sound like this or to sound more like that, or that at the end of the day, the money that I've made, I owe them like 80% of it. This is, which granted, I have tons of expenses. I have to pay the band, I have to pay for recording, I pay for everything. So don't get me wrong, I am in some degree forking out 80%, but it's on my terms, and it's with my sound, it's with the musicians of my choosing. It's the ability to say that I picked this. This is what I've created. I don't have a label surrounding me doing all those things. Now, I'm not bashing labels at all. I'm still open to taking a label. It would just have to be under the right terms. Because there's a lot out there that just want to take what you've got going for you and reap the benefits of it. And which I get. It's a business. You have to make the money, but there's different ways to go about it. And I'm not going to give up who I am as an artist for that.
Good on you, man. It's I'm seeing more and more kind of artist-owned labels out there at the minute,
Hmm.
and maybe that's the kind of premise to it is that they want to do things differently, do things the right way, and
Yeah,
bring people like you on board who have the same ethos. So, yeah, man, I'm for sure there's going to be some good people and good labels out there to watch out for.
for sure.
So if you can wave a magic wand almost, if there was just one particular thing that pisses you off to no end as an independent artist, what would that be? What kind of springs to mind immediately?
I think it's the stigma that you get from certain venues. Like, they don't even want to talk to you because you're an independent artist. They're like, oh, I'm only dealing with these kind of artists and these kind of artists. And it's just like I hear you, because once again, it's business. Um, but it's the fact that they don't even care about the sound of the music. You could be the worst band on earth, and if somehow you could bring several hundred people through the door, they don't mind. You could just go in there and suck ass all night, and they're like, it doesn't matter. These people are here to support these people. Because, dude, there's tons of bands that I've heard that, in my opinion, I'm just like, that's I just even musically, it doesn't even have to be a style of music that I'm into. I'm like, musically, this just doesn't even sonically sound good. And there's people who are just crazy about them because either A, they had the budget to market. There's something for everybody. Um, and so there's just I feel like these venue owners and even just like labels and things like that in general, they don't want to give someone who doesn't have the big numbers time, because they're not necessarily concerned about the sound. They're just concerned about the money you can generate. And so that sucks. At the same time, I get it because it's business. You have to make money. But it's just, giving some of the little guys a chance. I just wish that you'd see things like that more often, because there's so many incredible singer-songwriters out there and people who are making music that it just goes undiscovered because there's no one who's like willing to put the time and effort into somebody, because they're just so worried about, like, TikTokers who who blow up and have like a huge following, the labels are pitching to them because the legwork has already been done by the
Yes.
algorithm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. And I'm seeing that all of the time. And it's frustrating. You know, I can go scrolling through Spotify and see artists with 100,000 listens a
hmm
month. And the people that I listen to primarily are nowhere near hitting those numbers, but they should be. And
right.
I think a lot of it is down to that, either a viral moment, whether they're pitching to the right
hmm
playlists. You know, I think a lot of it is to do with marketing. And it must be incredibly frustrating to artists that you know, amazing at the music, but the business side of it, if you're on your own, you don't have the budget, you don't have the connections, you kind
Right.
of, it must feel really isolating to those guys to try and push on. You know, I've seen a lot of people
hmm
duck out of the scene as well to say, like, I've just had enough of it.
Yep.
And that's really disappointing to see. I'm hoping things will change. It's got to change at some point
Right.
with new things coming out. But I suppose, you know, talking about things being a lonely place and, you know, with the constraints or the stresses put on artists these days, how do you personally kind of go about maintaining mental clarity and making sure that you're doing all right and that you can continue doing what you're doing?
That's a good question. You know, some days it's harder than others for sure. I think that's why I lean on posting so much and just letting people know what's going on so that they're involved in the ground zero of things. Because if I just sat alone with my thoughts and all that, you know, I feel like it would be rough. But I feel like part of me is that part of the reason for all that, why I feel like I stay above water, is that I do keep everyone so involved. And so, you know, I have my friends reach out to me and they're like, "Hey, you know, I really feel like you're doing this right." And because I know just about as much as anybody else. Like, you know, I'm figuring this out as I go, and so that's why I tend to include people a lot. Is just because I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just doing things to the best of my ability and making the smartest decisions that I feel gut wise are right for me. And so I just keep the community involved, and you know, they keep me pushing. They keep my head level. And I think it's just because I realize that at the end of the day, I'm not anything without my support, that I don't sit here and I don't know. It's a hard, you know, it's a multi-layered question, but I try to spend time that I'm not creating music doing things that I enjoy. Because there are times, excuse me, that I definitely get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everything doing with music, and I don't give adequate time to other spots of my life, like things that I enjoy doing that I'm not looking for returns from. You know, I make music, of course, because I love it, but now I have a band and I have bills. And so at some point, you know, I have to do things that take shows and things like that that put me in positions to make the money to survive, of course. I'm never going to make a song that I'm like, okay, I'm making this one because this one's a little more geared towards the pop side and maybe it'll make me a little more money. I'm not interested in that. But I do have to be smart about what I do because I lean so much on what I make from music. Um, so you know, I just try to spend time doing things that I still enjoy. You know, I'll play on my Switch sometimes. I'll watch movies with my wife. You know, things like that. You know, I try and, like I said, keep the community involved and keep in contact with the people who are doing right by me. And it keeps my head grounded and it keeps me out of those dark spots pretty often. You know, I have physical health problems, and so that's probably my biggest drawback mentally, is just trying not to succumb to those kinds of things. But everyone has it, you know. I feel like I'm not special, so it kind of keeps me to the point where it's like, you know, I'm going through this, but so is somebody else, and it keeps me in the headspace of I'm either going to let this take over me or I'm going to use it as fuel to be like, hey, I overcame this, or I'm, you know, every day I have to overcome this to create music. So, you know, there's no excuse. You know, there's just so many ways my head goes about it, and I don't have a great answer or the right answer. It's just kind of what works for me most of the time. It doesn't work every day.
Yeah.
But You know, it's just that's like the human condition. You know, it's a struggle, but it's just part of it. If I had
Yeah.
it all easy, I wouldn't be a storyteller. So
Use it as fuel for the next
that's it.
song, mate.
That's it. It's fuel.
It's difficult. Like you say, you mentioned personal, like physical issues you've got, and
Hmm.
being on the road constantly. I mean, it opens my eyes, these conversations about being on the road. In a day, probably 10 hours sometimes, just to get to a
Yeah, yeah.
venue and back, and you've got to be in some kind of good physical condition, unless you're fortunate enough, like Jelly Roll, perhaps to have a massive trailer taking you everywhere.
Yeah.
It's hard going. So during the week, I suppose, how often do you travel out? Where do you go to?
So some weeks are busier than others. During the week, if we're playing, you know, we're not traveling more than, like, we played a couple nights ago and that was 3 hours round trip. So that's not bad. You know, that's easy. During the week, it's not too bad. But if we have like a long stretch of things where we have to go to Nashville, or like we had to go to Atlanta for 3 days for the ISSA awards and things like that, you know, those are tougher. Those are, you know, long stretches where you're just sitting in the van, and it does wear and tear on you. You know, it's just, you're, especially mentally, because you're trying to, for me, sitting with my thoughts for 7 hours is not a great thing, you know. You know, I'm
Same.
always constantly doing something to, you know, maybe to escape some of that a little bit. And then the times that I do sit with my thoughts, I'm usually sitting there with a guitar, so that way I have something to put all of that into. But the van makes that a little harder, you know, because not everyone's chatting for 7 straight hours, or sometimes people are sleeping, and then it's just you and the sound of the road for a good 4 hours. And I'm like, oh God, here are the thoughts. You know?
They're coming back.
Yeah, yeah. They creep up on you, man, and they're not always good, you know, because there's just there's so much gray area and so much question in all of this kind of stuff. Like, I I have the struggle of, when I write a good song, I never ever think that I'm gonna be able to write a song as good or better. So like when I came out with Fighter Boy and Fighter Boy started doing good, I was like, I'm never gonna be able to write a song this good. And then, you know, Road Dogg comes along and I'm like, okay, well, this is surely the end of my writing abilities. I'll never be able to write something better than this. And then now I have some songs in the works that I'm really stoked about. And, you know, it's weird because as much as you're able to recognize it as a cycle, it, in the moment, it doesn't compute to you that you've already been through this and you're going to get over it. In the moment, it's just like, oh my God, I'm never going to write another song about this. But my mind never seems to remember that I wrote Fighter Boy, and then I wrote, you know, Come On Home, which was another really good song. And then I wrote Road Dog. But now when I wrote Road Dog, I was like, oh God, I'm never going to write a song better than this one. And then you end up writing another song, and it's just, I don't know, man. It's a vicious cycle, you know, mental health and all that kind of stuff. But it's just, I feel like that's where the songs come from. So if I have to be a tortured artist, I guess that's my calling.
Definitely, mate. And that was actually going to be my next question. It was like, how do you raise the bar? But then I suppose that's it's an odd question, because you're not always looking to raise the bar. And what defines
Hmm.
good to one person, someone might have a different
Yeah, it's very
flavor. And
subjective.
the amount of
Right.
people I speak to, let's say that the song that has done the best is the one that they didn't either not care about, but they just didn't think it was a thing. It was just something that they needed to get out. They put it out there as a,
That's how I feel about Fighter Boy. It's
yeah,
written about my own, you know, I lost my brother when I was 9. And so it's just, not everyone's been through something like that. And so I felt like it was very personal to me. But, you know, it's kind of like one of those things, you hear a song that doesn't even necessarily have to be about your own experience, but you kind of, everyone has lost somebody to some degree. It doesn't have to be your brother. It could have been your friend. It could have been somebody else who lost their friend and you were with them while they were grieving. These songs, like, I guess, you know, they create those connections in your brain, and you don't even realize that it doesn't necessarily have to be your exact story. It just has to be something that you relate to, even in the tiniest bit, and it causes those things to kind of like grasp to you. And so I wasn't expecting Fighter Boy to be that song. I was expecting Runaway Train to be more of that song, because it's kind of about trying to escape that 9 to 5 lifestyle. And I don't know many people who enjoy the 9 to 5 lifestyle. They, they end up working it most of the time, unfortunately, till they die. But at the same time, it's like you're always like, man, I hate this job. I wish I could get away from this, blah, 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 blah. And that's what Runaway Train was written about, was me getting away from the 9 to 5 and going towards music and chasing what I wanted. And so it was kind of just like the blue collar, like, workforce song. And I was like, everyone will relate to this. And it did okay. Like, everyone still likes the song, but I put out Fighter Boy and everyone was like, dude, that's the song. And I was just like, I wasn't expecting that. It
Mm.
meant a lot to me, but I wasn't expecting it to mean so much to everyone else.
Yeah, man, it's interesting how that comes about, and I just love the way people draw inspiration, and I find it funny as well because some people go, all of my tracks are autobiographical. Everything
Hmm.
I'm writing about or singing, that's me. That's what's happened in my life. But then you speak to other people. Not saying we spoke to Cultural at all, but I'm sure it was him that said it. It was like, well, how can it be autobiographical? I'm singing about things in the olden times, and things
Right.
that inspired me or things I've read, and so not everything has to relate to your own life.
Right.
It's just interesting how people draw upon that those different inspirations. So it's a cool process, man. Is there
Hmm.
any kind of, when you sit in the van or at home with your guitar, is there a starting point that you always kind of have a process for yourself, or is it just come out however you want it to?
Yeah. So my process is always music first. I don't really ever have any lyrical concepts necessarily. I start with the music, and then from there, I kind of start humming out melodies to it, and the words just fall in place for that. I pretty much just freestyle the words until I've come across something that I'm like, that actually feels right and feels, it's something that's real for me. But yeah,
Uh,
it's always music first.
awesome. So in terms of looking at the future and how people can even support you, what's coming up next? What are you up to?
So we're gonna start, which I haven't announced this, but I'm fine announcing it here. We're gonna start in October the process of recording the next album. And so, I have like Patreon and all those kinds of things set up to where people who would like to get on board with, it's hard to ask people for their money because money has become, I feel like, less and less valuable, or less and less not valuable, but less and less. It doesn't go as far, So to ask people for their money when things are so tough, at least here in America, um, it's hard to do. But at the same time, the people who support me, the day that I launched my Patreon, I had 11 people immediately sign up. And so that, that helped out a lot because that keeps that reoccurring, just knowing, hey, there's some funds coming in that we can put towards marketing or put towards the studio bill and all that kind of things. But yeah, so October we're going to start recording. Um, it'll for sure at least take a few months to get through the record, I know, and then it'll take some months to get all the marketing and stuff planning out. So I would say probably looking at like a spring release, maybe, if I had to guess. But in that time, I think I'm gonna go to some friends of mine and try and record some covers, things like that. It's just content. You're constantly trying to. It's like a wood burning stove, and you're feeding it content.
Yeah, that's a good
You just got to
analogy,
keep
man.
the fire going. And so, but yeah, for sure, we'll be starting the album. I've already started working on those songs. I'm really stoked about some of them. Some people have already heard some of the songs because I cut that little demo EP, just me and the acoustic that I have released, and a few of those are going to make it to the record. Um, but yeah, that's really the big thing that's on the agenda. We have festival seasons coming up here in the United States, so we've got some really really big shows coming up. Thousands in attendance, thankfully. So hopefully that'll help kind of push everything out. We'll get some merch sold and maybe get some more people signed up on Patreon and things like that. So we'll see. It's just one thing after the other.
Awesome, man. We're rooting for you, so we will
I
definitely keep an
appreciate
eye
it.
out for that. And so, what's your favorite festival when it comes to festival season? Where do you normally head to?
Festival season, honestly, it's locals. It's the local stuff. We're playing a huge show in Louisiana called at the Washington Parish Fair. They're having Rodney Atkins. And so Rodney Atkins was one of my favorite 2000s country singers
Oh, he's brilliant.
ever. And so we got asked to play with him. And so that's just huge. It's just us and him that night. So that's going to be awesome.
Wow.
But yeah, it's typically local stuff. I mean, I would love to travel for some festivals. Uh, we're just, trying to create those opportunities to get those offers. So I think this year will be a really good year for us. Ending out on these festivals and stuff like that, and we'll just see what 2026 has.
No, that's awesome, man. Have you got any plans ever to come to the UK? Has it ever been on your
Oh yeah. So
thoughts?
I've been to the UK actually, by the way. Just
Oh, sweet.
yeah, yeah. I've been to the UK when I was a kid. I was a really, really smart child, which I feel dumb as hell now. So it's really funny to say that. But because I was so smart, I got scouted by this government program called People to People, and they bring kids over there to represent like the government here, and we go there and we're in blazers every single day. I went to the Queen's birthday parade. I went and met like the Parliament. We went to England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, and it was awesome. But as far as playing, dude, I'd love to. I was in talks with some people over in the Netherlands about possibly coming there. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
I'd
man.
love to get
So
over to Europe.
you could have been a rocket scientist, but instead you are playing in a band. But
Yeah,
good on you.
I was a biology major in college.
Wow. Now you're making me feel really stupid.
No, trust me, I'm the dumb one, dude. I promise you. My brain has not taken age well.
Mate. Since I had kids about 12 years ago, my brain cells, I've probably got one left. So I'm doing all right. Yeah, man. Look, it's been awesome to talk to you. What I do before we close up is we have a bit of a pass the mic session. So the previous guest, they never know who is on the next podcast, and I asked them to say, well, any question you want to ask them. It could be rude, it could be anything really, music related, not music related. And we had Susanna Clegg, a UK artist, on previous, and she was very kind to you, Jared. So
okay,
her question to you is, what is your favourite novel, if you're a reader?
I'm not.
I knew.
But my let me think. I have of course read some books, but I don't read like ever. I haven't sat down and read a book front to start in probably, I'd give it at least 15 years.
Me neither.
So I'm gonna go The Hungry Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle.
Oh, that's a classic, man.
Classic, dude.
That's about my level too.
Yeah, me too.
Fantastic. And I should know who I've got on next, but I just can't remember. But so any question you want to ask them, I will write it down and I will 100% answer next guest. So what is yours, mate?
Okay, my question is, if you've been on tour, have you ever had any close calls of almost using the bathroom on yourself? Because I have.
Oh, really? You're going to have to tell us now.
Yeah, so long story short, my this is bad, dude. So I was on tour with a band that I was in back in 2015, and dude, I was about to pee on myself, and as dudes, it's a lot easier to get out and go pee. So I think they were purposefully not letting me get out to mess with me, and so I ended up having to piss in a pickle jar that we had in the van, and I was very scared that at some point someone was going to take a sip of the brine, because pissing in the pickle jar, it's not going to change the color too much, So I kept telling people like, "Yo, do not take any sips of this. I have pissed in this pickle." Like I had to go. Yeah, so that was the piss pickle jar was something.
Oh, that's hilarious, mate. I will certainly answer the next person. And it's funny you say that because so we had a couple of touring artists over, well, all over in the UK at the minute for this week, Cody Leamis and Joe Clark. So big up to those guys selling out in the UK all week.
That's awesome.
But on their first night, they're like, we want to try something UK traditional, and for some reason people always pick curry. They're like, let's go for a curry. Let's go for a spicy curry. And I thought, well, the last thing you want is to have a vindaloo or something and then go on stage and shit yourself. So
yeah,
I'm not going to be responsible for that, man.
I love spicy curry, but I'm not eating it before I perform. No,
it's not worth the risk. But look,
No.
mate, it's been awesome having you on. I'm glad to get to know you, and
Thank you, buddy.
sometimes we just look at Facebook and it seems a bit of a strange world we operate in. So to have these conversations, we do appreciate it. But yeah, guys, go out and go check out Jared's music, his socials. Where's the best place to find you? Is it all over?
Anywhere. I'm literally on any social but X. So I mean, literally whatever. You can find me anywhere you listen to music, anywhere you doom scroll on social media.
Sweet.
I'm there.
We will include the links in the episode description when this gets uploaded, mate. So thanks for coming on again, dude. We'll speak again soon.
Appreciate you.